All right, hello everyone. I thought I would just do a quick review of these problems that might come up on your test this Wednesday. So this is the first lesson of review for solving for intersections. So let's just work through each of these examples bit by bit. So I'm just skipping the videos here. Okay, now we're on the first problem. This one turns out to be pretty easy if you do it by the substitution method. So let's set up that. Okay, I'm just going to write on this little screenshot here. Okay, so here's the problem. It's y equals -5. So we have this nice like horizontal line. And then 5x plus 4y equals -20. So using the substitution method, we're already given the y value here. We can just plug in a -5 for any other y that we see in the problem. Okay, we are going to answer in the form of an ordered pair. So we already know that our y is going to be -5 because we're just told that here at the top. Now it's all about finding what the x value is. So I'm plugging in -5 for y. Okay, so now the equation says 5x plus 4 times -5 equals -20. So now the equation is just in terms of x. 5x minus 20 is equal to -20. Okay, so let's see if I add 20 to both sides. And then let me continue it up here. I get 5x is equal to 0. So that means that x itself has to be equal to 0. Okay, and that's my ordered pair. It's going to be 0, comma, -5. Okay, let's get rid of that. Let's enter in our answer. So it's going to be 0, comma, -5. Okay, looks good. All right, let's move on to the next one. So this one says y equals 4x minus 9 and y equals x minus 3. We're going to do this one by the substitution method also because it's easy to do that way. Y equals 4x minus 9 and then y equals x minus 3. This time we're given that y equals an expression rather than a single value. But still the same idea applies. We can substitute in this value in for any other y that we see in a different equation. So we're just going to replace y with 4x minus 9 into the bottom equation, and let's rewrite that with the substitution. 4x minus 9 equals x minus 3. Good, so now the equation is only in terms of x, and we can solve for x. Let's take away x from both sides. That way we have all of the x's just on one side. Okay, so now I get 3x minus 9 is equal to -3. So let's move over the other terms to get x by itself. 3x, let's see, if we add 9 to both sides, we'll end up with 3x equals 6. Okay, so then divide both sides by 3. And that gives us our answer for x. X equals 2. Here's our solution so far. It's 2 comma something. So now we can finish the problem by plugging in this value that we got, x equals 2, in for any of the x's that we see in the other equation. So let's plug it in for y equals x minus 3. Okay, replace the x with a 2, and now you can figure out what y is. Y equals 2 minus 3, so y is equal to -1. Okay, that should be our solution, 2 comma -1. All right, let's plug that in. So we have 2 comma -1. Sorry, using this keyboard on the iPad is a little clunky. Okay, there we go. Okay, this one and the problems from here on out we're going to do using just the method of elimination. Okay, so here's the first one that kind of looks like that. Now we could also use substitution on it, but we'd have to rearrange the terms. This one's easy enough to use elimination on. Let me write out the problem first, so it's larger. 4x minus y equals 20. -2x minus 2y is equal to 10. Okay, so the whole idea behind elimination is that you want to add together the two equations. And you want to add them together so that one of the variables will drop out. But you can see right away, if we just add them together without modifying the equations at all, we won't get the x's to drop out and we won't get the y's to drop out. In fact, if we add them together at this point, we're going to get 2x here, and then we get negative 3y equals 30. Okay, so that's no good because we still have x's and y's. We want to get it in terms of just one variable. Okay, so there's really only one trick for this, which is that you multiply the top equation or the bottom equation by a number so that when you do add them together, the x's or the y's drop out. Let's choose to eliminate the x's. So this one already says 4x. I want this one to say negative 4x. So clearly I have to multiply the bottom equation by 2. And then the top equation I'll just leave alone. Okay, let me rewrite the problem over here. It's going to be 4x minus y equals 20. Just recopying that. And then this bottom equation here is multiplied by 2. So it's going to be negative 4x minus 4y equals 20. Okay, now I can add them together and the x's will drop out. 4x minus 4x is 0. Okay, but I won't bother writing that. Negative y minus 4y is negative 5y. 20 plus 20 is 40. So if I divide both sides by negative 5, now I can solve for y, and I can see that y is equal to negative 8. Okay, so that's my part of the answer for this ordered pair. It's going to be something comma negative 8. Okay, so now we just have to figure out what the x is going to be. So again, we just have to plug in this negative 8 in for one of these y's that appears somewhere else in one of the equations over there. So let's plug in negative 8 for that y, and then we'll substitute in and we'll solve for x. So I'm just going to use this space down here. Let's save that. Okay, 4x minus negative 8 is equal to 20. Okay, negative 8, or minus 8 is 4x plus 8. So if I subtract 8 from both sides, I'll have 4x is equal to 12. And then if I divide both sides by 4, I get that x is going to be equal to 3, right? Okay, so that's my answer, 3 comma negative 8. Let's put in that. Okay, so 3 and then negative 8. Okay, looks good. Okay, let's try this other one. This is one that I think you could do now if you understood what happened in that last method. It's basically the same type of problem setup. So you might want to pause the video right now and try it on your own. But if you still need to see how to do it or you need to check your answer, I'll just work on it right now. So the equations are 8x minus 6y equals negative 20, and then negative 16x plus 7y is equal to 30. Okay, and we want to add together these equations. But if we do right away, nothing will drop out. So we have to decide what's easier to make the variable get eliminated, the x's or the y's. And it looks to me like the x's will be easier to eliminate. So what can we multiply the top equation by, or what can we multiply the bottom equation by to get the x's to be 0 when added together? Looks like we'll multiply the top equation by 2, and then we'll multiply the bottom equation by nothing. We'll multiply it by 1, just keep it the same. Okay, let's see what that looks like. It's going to be 16x minus 12y equals negative 40. Okay, then the bottom equation will be left as is, so negative 16x plus 7y equals 30. Okay, now we can add them together. These are going to cancel. Let's see, then what's negative 12y plus 7y? It's going to be negative 5y, and that's going to be equal to negative 10. Okay, if you divide both sides by negative 5, you're going to get y is equal to positive 2. Okay, so let me start to write out my answer. Something comma 2. Okay, then the same idea here, you just plug in this 2 for a y in any of the equations, whatever looks easier. Let's do the bottom equation this time just to show that we can. Okay, so I'm just going to make some space here and rewrite the equation negative 16x plus 7 times 2, plugging that in for y, equals 30. Now you solve for x. Well, 7 times 2 is 14. Okay, that's better. Okay, and then that's equal to 30. Okay, if we subtract 14 from both sides, we have negative 16x is equal to, what, 16? Okay, this means that x has to be negative 1. Okay, so let's try that answer, negative 1 comma 2. Okay, so it says that that's correct. Good. Okay, what about this one? So this one's a little more interesting because the variables are on different sides of the equation. So our first thing is going to be just to organize it better by rewriting some terms. Let me rewrite it as it was written originally, though. Negative 16y equals 22 plus 6x. And then negative 11y minus 4x equals 15. So what I don't really like about this right now is that the x's and the y's are kind of mismatched on different sides of the equal sign. So what we might want to do first is just to rearrange it so that we have the x's and the y's on the same side. So I'm just going to move this 6x over to that side of the equation. Okay, so here's what I get instead. I'm going to get negative 16y minus 6x equals 22. And then this one will read the same as before. Negative 11y minus 4x equals 15. Okay, so what is easier to eliminate, the y's or the x's? Well, I think again the x's. This time though, you're going to have to multiply by two different numbers. You're going to have to multiply the top equation by something that will allow the x coefficient to be the opposite of what the x coefficient is down on the bottom equation. So we do this just by thinking of what are the multiples of 6 and what are the multiples of 4, and can we find a least common multiple? So what are the multiples of 6? 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, and so on. Okay, what are the multiples of 4? 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Okay, so we think of, what did they have in common? Well, they had a 12 in common, right? So we can make this one say maybe negative 12, and we can make this one say maybe positive 12. So let's multiply this one by 2, and let's multiply this one by negative 3. Okay, then the top one is going to say minus 12x, and then the bottom one will say plus 12x. And that's what we want. When we add them together, they'll be 0x. Okay, let me just rewrite everything over on this left-hand side here. Okay, so 2 times negative 16y is going to be negative 32y. 2 times negative 6x is going to be negative 12x. 2 times 22 is going to be 44. Okay, what about the bottom equation? Negative 3 times negative 11y is 33y. Negative 3 times negative 4x is positive 12x. And then negative 3 times 15 is negative 45. So now we add together these two equations, and what are we left with? We have 1y is equal to, what, negative 1. Okay, you can see the x's just canceled out there. I had 0x. So perfect, y is equal to negative 1. It's going to be part of our solution. Okay, so now let's just do the same thing as we did before and plug in negative 1 for one of the y's in one of the equations from before. It doesn't matter which one. Let's choose like this one, I guess. So let me rewrite this. I'm just going to make some room down here. Negative 11 times negative 1 minus 4x equals 15. Okay, so that's going to be positive 11 minus 4x equals 15. So subtracting 11 from both sides gives us minus 4x is equal to, it's 15 minus 11, it's 4. So that means that x is equal to negative 1. Okay, so our answer then is negative 1 comma negative 1. Let's put in that. Okay, looks good. Here's our last problem. Okay, this one is even more disorganized, I guess you could say. But we can just rearrange some terms again and then have the problem be set up in a way that we can add together the equations and get something to eliminate. Let me just start by rewriting it. Negative 16 plus 20x minus 8y equals 0. And then 36 is equal to negative 18y minus 22x. Okay, so let's see. We can do this several ways, but why don't we work on just moving the x's and the y's over to the right-hand side of the equal sign, just like these already are. So let's bring this term over here by subtracting 20x. Let's bring this term over here by adding 8y. Okay, so now it's going to look like this. Negative 16 is equal to negative 20x plus 8y. And then I'm just going to copy again that bottom equation. 36 equals negative 18x minus 22. Oops, sorry, that should have been negative 18y. So negative 18y minus 22x. Okay, looks good. So let me just switch the order that these are appearing in. I can just change their order because as long as we keep the associated sign with it, the order of addition doesn't matter. Okay, so now here are our two equations. Okay, so this one is tricky because we have numbers that aren't easy to find what the next common multiple is for them, or what the least common multiple is. So let's think of which one might be easier to do, though. 20 and 22. That seems hard just because the numbers are so close to each other. Let's try the y's instead. 8 and 18. Okay, so I need to multiply these numbers that I've underlined in red by numbers so that the coefficients will be the same thing but with the opposite sign. So basically the question that I'm asking is, what is the least common multiple of 8 and 18? So I'm going to compare, just off to the side here, the number 8 and the number 18. Okay, what is 8? It's 4 times 2. What is 18? It's 9 times 2. Okay, so, well, they have in common this 2, so that's a start. But I can make the numbers the same if I multiply, let's see, this one by 4, and if I multiply this one by 9. Okay, so now look at it. 9 times 4 times 2 should be the same number as 9 times 2 times 4, right? So the numbers in red are what I need to multiply each one by. And what is this number going to be, actually? It's going to be 72 in the end. So you'll see that I get positive 72y minus 72y. If I multiply this 8y by 9, and I multiply this negative 18y by 4. Okay, let me clear off some space. And I'm going to cut for a minute, and I'm just going to rewrite the problem over on the left. Okay, so I just took a moment to copy down the problem over here after multiplying the top equation by 9 and by multiplying the bottom equation by 4. Okay, of course you can use a calculator on this if you need to. So here's what I got. Now it just so happens that on the left side they ended up canceling out 2. I got negative 144 and I got 144. That was 9 times negative 16 and 4 times 36. So anyway, that's just a coincidence, but these ended up canceling to 0. And we have negative 80x plus negative 88x. So that ends up being, what, negative 268x, I guess. Okay, and then, of course, 72y plus negative 72y ends up being 0y. So those cancel out. So anyway, we get x equals 0. Because we can divide both sides by negative 268. Okay, so our intersection point is 0, comma something. So what is the y value? So once again, we're going to have to substitute in 0 for the x in one of these earlier equations. So let's pick this x to substitute in for. So I have negative 16 equals negative 20 times 0 plus 8y. In other words, negative 16 equals 8y. So then y is going to have to be equal to negative 2. Okay, so my solution should be 0, comma negative 2 for that. Okay, so let's bring that into the answer box. What was it, 0, comma negative 2? Oops. Okay, very good. All right, good. So we got full credit. Okay, so I hope that was helpful, and I'll be posting another one of these videos for tomorrow's review, so you can get help on those if you need to as well. All right, thank you for watching.